everyone, it's Skylar, welcome back to my channel, and we're on to day 16 of 31 days of November challenge month. And if you see something on my lip, I've had a reaction to a plaster, the Compeed cold sore plasters. So that if you're wondering. So anyway, enough about this and let's get on to this. So we're on to the second of 3 of horror movies to review from the 1970s. And the second movie I've decided to review is a film I've already seen before, twice before, and I want to revisit it again. It's from my, if we're doing a top 5 directors list, then this director would probably be in my top 3 basically. And it is, of course, the movie is Suspiria from 1977. It's directed by Dario Argento, produced by Claudio Argento and Salvatore Argento, written by Dario Argento, Daria Nicolodi, based on Suspiria di Profundis by Thomas D. Quincy, starring Jessica Harper as Susie Bannion, Stefania Cassini as Sarah, Flavio Bucci as Daniel, Miguel Bosé as Mark, Alida Valli as Miss Tanner, Joan Bennett as Madame Blanc, Barbara Magnolfi as Olga, Udo Kaya as Dr. Frank Mandel, Eva Axon as Pat Hingle, Rudolf Schundler as Professor Milius, Susanna Giavicoli as Sonia, Franca Scagnetti as the cook, Giuseppe Transocchi as Pavlo, Giancopo Mariani as Albert, Renato Scarpa as Professor Vedgasti, Margarita Horowitz as the teacher, Leila Svasta, who was uncredited as the mother, Superium, and Helena Marcos. Because this before, and Dario Argento, of course, he was uncredited as the narrator. But before I carry on, I'm sure, but don't quote me on this one, this is the first of the Mother of Tears trilogy, if you get what I mean. It's along them lines of films that he done. Narrated by Dario Argento, music by Dario Argento and Goblin. Oh, and anything that Goblin does with Dario Argento is thumbs up with me. Cinematography by Luciano Tovoli, edited by Franco Fraticelli. Production company Seda Spettacoli. Distributed by Produzionales Atlas Consorzionate, and then in brackets got PAC. This was released in Italia on the 1st of February 1977, and the US got their release on the 12th of August 1977. So the movie starts off with Susie Bannion, who is an American ballet student who arrives at Munich airport in Germany and enrolls in the prestigious Tanz Academy. Freiburg. She arrives late at night in a massive thunderstorm. Susie can't get into the academy, however she sees a young student, Pat Hingle, fleeing from the school in a state of terror, and as she leaves she shouts to someone inside of the building, but Susie can't hear her words through the storms. Susie then makes her way through to a hotel, and Pat finds refuge at a friend's apartment in another town and says to her friend that there is something terrible going on inside the town's academy, and then says that she's leaving in the morning. Then afterwards she locks herself in the bathroom and is drawn to the window, and she sees a shadowy figure outside. Using a lamp, she sees a pair of eyes glaring back at her before it disappears, but as she leans closer to the window, an arm smashes through the window and smothers her against the glass. Then Pat screams. Her friend pounds at the door and runs from the apartment to find help. Then in the bathroom, the attacker viciously assaults Pat and stabs her repeatedly. She then lies drenched in blood and wounded from multiple savage knife wounds to her heart. The killer then puts a noose around her neck. Then in the room below, Pat's friend is running for the exit when a piece of glass falling from above narrowly misses, from which stops her in her tracks. She then looks up just as Pat's body crashes through a large stained skylight and plummets into mid-air. Then the rope snaps and kills her. On the ground below Pat's suspended body lies the mutilated remains of her friend, who is impaled among jagged glass and twisted metal. Then the next day, Susie arrives at the academy and is introduced to Madame Blanc and Miss Tanner, who is one of the instructors. She is then escorted to the students' locker room to meet two other students, Sarah and Olga, who she has arranged to stay with off campus. After an encounter with the two, Susie faints during a lesson. Then later that night, she wakes up to find out that she has been moved against her wishes. Then the doctors tell her she needs to be medicated with a glass of wine daily. Then Susie and Sarah become friends after they share a room together. Then the students prepare for dinner. Lots of maggots fall from the ceiling. The students are told this was because the food was stored poorly in the attic. Then the girls are invited to sleep in the hall overnight while the food and maggots are disposed of. Then during the night, Sarah hears a whistling snore, which is the school's director, who isn't due to come back to the academy for another several weeks yet. Then the next morning, Miss Tanner tells Daniel, who is the blind piano player, to leave after his guide dog bites Albert. Then at night, Sarah hears footsteps and counts them while Susie is drowsy and falls asleep. Meanwhile, Daniel and his guide dog cross a plaza. Daniel feels a strange presence, and Daniel's guide dog lunges at Daniel, tearing his throat out and kills him. The next day, Susie recalls hearing the words Iris and Secret from Pat's mumbling when she first arrived at the academy. Then later that night, Susie and Sarah go swimming, and Sarah tells Susie that her and Pat were close friends and says that Pat was talking weird for some time. Then the two girls search for Pat's personal notes, but they appear to be stolen. Susie becomes drowsy and falls asleep, and Sarah runs away after hearing footsteps. Sarah is chased by an unknown person and thinks she will escape through a window into another room. She falls into a pile of razor wire and struggles and then gets her throat slit. Then the next day, Madame Blanc and Miss Tanner tell Susie that Sarah apparently left the academy. Susie is confused and suspicious. She meets one of Sarah's friends, a psychologist by the name of Frank Mandel, who tells Susie that the academy was founded by Helena Marcos, a cruel woman that was believed to be a witch. Then Dr. Mandel's colleague, Professor Milnes, tells Susie that a coven can only survive with their queen. Then when Susie returns, she finds out that all of the students have gone to the theatre. Sarah then hears footsteps and follows them to Madame Blanc's office and suddenly recalls Pat's mumbling after discovering Iris's painting all over the walls of Madame Blanc's office. Then enters a hidden passage. She sees Madame Blanc, Miss Tanner and the staff performing a ritual where they plan Susie's death. Susie then turns to see Sarah's body nailed to a coffin. Susie gets frightened and sneaks to another room where she accidentally awakens a figure who reveals herself as Helena Marcos. She hears laughing and a demonic voice. Helena orders Sarah's corpse to rise from the dead to murder Susie, but Susie stabs Helena through the throat with a knife which kills her and Sarah's corpse. Helena's demise causes the building to go on fire as the academy is slowly destroyed with the coven inside. Susie manages to escape before the entire building catches fire, and then that's the end of the film. So, my thoughts on Suspiria. If you guys don't know already, I am a massive fan of Dario Argento's work. So I'm going to be a bit biased here, and you know how I feel about his films from every single little aspect, because I like his style of directing. It's just totally different to, say, somebody like, I'm just thinking, Ruggero Deodato and Takashi Miike's, and he's slightly a bit different from Lucio Fulci's, but I prefer his style of work because he likes to use a lot of crazy murders and a lot of impalings and witches and demons, like in his films. So I'm totally biased because one of my favourite films, like horror films, is Demons, which he produced, and Lamberto Bava directed that film. So even them two together are like two diamonds in a pod, like two peas in a pod basically. So anyway, back to Suspiria. My favourite character from this, of course, was Susie. I do like Susie's character, but I also like the way how Pat was portrayed at the beginning and how she got killed, and also as well, what I find is a lot of Dario Argento's films are set in Germany. So I don't know if he has a love for Germany or anything like that, but most of his films are sort of set in Germany, which do you know what, I actually like that. I actually like that it's not all set in Italia, even though some stuff's in Italian and English and stuff like that. But I like the fact that it was set in a school out the way in the middle of nowhere, and even the teachers would rated this film. It's just how the film was shot. It was just beyond amazement. I adore it. Because I'm gonna be a bit biased because I am a Dario Argento fan. So, because you can't say, when you do a review, is you can't say, oh, it was good. You need to like explain yourself. And even though I watched this like a couple of weeks ago, there's still little bits that I find fresh. And of course my favourite scene was at the end, where finally Susie goes into the theatre and Helena Marcos reveals herself as to be one of the mothers, like the part of the mothers of Tears trilogy. Mothers of Tears trilogy. This is why I like this film. Because you've got this film, you've got Mothers of Tears, and you've got another one, I can't remember, I think it's, don't quote me on it, but I think it's opera. I think it's opera, but I'm not 100% certain. But out of that trilogy, this is Suspiria is my favourite from that trilogy, so rating, I've got to give it a 9 out of 10. Because it is just simply stunning from start to finish. I adore the film. It's not my favourite Argento film, don't get me wrong, but it's right up there, because my favourite Argento film is Phenomena, and that was in the 80s, but so that's why I'm a bit biased towards Dario Argento films, because I adore them. So yeah, I hope you liked this review, and of course stay gaudy, have unpleasant dreams, and I will see you very soon. Ta-ta for now, bye.